Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. I am Prangya in Jena and I am working as a security engineer at Threatsys. Today I am going to talk about security information and event management and how security team use SIM to monitor, detect, investigate and respond to cyber threats. Now, before we move forward with today's session, let me give you a short introduction about our organization. Threatsys is 13 associate and ISO certified company and one of the leading cyber security service provider in India. And for the last 12 years, we have been there in the field with the approach in searching critical and sensitive data of our clients. Now let's start with the agenda and see what we are going to cover today. First, we will understand the fundamental of SIM. Then, we will look at what happens inside of SIM and its architecture. After that, we will discuss threat detection, detection rules, and event correlation. Then, we will move from alert to response and see SIM in action with a real world example. Finally, we will discuss SIM challenge and event with the key takeaway and question. Well, before we look at how SIM works, let's first understand what SIM actually is and what is to become an important part of the modern security operation. In a typical organization, security related events are being generated continuously. Users are logging in, endpoints are communicating, applications are generating event, network devices are recording traffic, and cloud services are producing activity logs. The challenge is that all of this information is spread across a different system. Then you will understand what is SIM. SIM stands for Security Information and Event Management. At a high level, a SIM platform collects security logs and events data from different parts of an organization's environment. This important point here is that SIM gives the security team a common view of activity across of the environment instead of forcing analysts to investigate every system separately. And this is why SIM matters from a business point of view. The IBM 2025 cost of the database report a global average breach cost of the $4.40 million with an average breach life cycle of the 241 days. The longer an organization takes to identify and contain attack, the more opportunity and attackers has to cause damage. So the role of the SIM is not simple to collect large amount of logs. It refers to its help to security teams gain visibility into what is happening and identifying the malicious activity. As we have seen how data move through the SIM. Let's look at the architecture, where the data comes from, how it is collected and processed. For now, we will understand what is raw logs. The first stage is raw logs. Different systems continuously generated security events. For example, firewall records, network activity, server generated system, event, application generated application logs, cloud platform generated activity records, and identify provider record authenticated activity. At this stage, the information is still in the format produced by each individual system. So the first job of SIM is to bring these different events into the platform. Then second stage is normalization. Different systems don't necessarily describe the event in the same format. One system might use a particular field for the source of IP, while another system may use a different field name or structure. And what is the purpose? Normalization convert this different format into a more standardized structure. This make it easy to SIM search, compare, and analyze event coming to the different source. Then now third stage is enrichment. At this point, additional context can be added to an event to make it more useful. For example, an event could be enriched with the information such as the geography location of an IP address, the owner of the asset, the risks associated with a user. information from the threat intelligence. Then fourth phase is correlation. Once the event have been collected, normalized and enriched, SIM can look for relationship between them instead of the threatening every event as a completely separate. Related event can be connected to be identify meaningful pattern. This is the important because the event may not be enough to indicate the threat, but the multiple relevant events can provide the stronger evidence of dangerous activity. The final stage is the actionable alert. After the SIM processing the available information, it can generate an alert with the relevant contents and priority instead of processing the analyze with the thousand of unrelated raw events. The aim of the surface, the events that require the attention and provide the enough contents to understand the why they are flagged. Yes, the next question is how does SIM actually identify the dangerous activity? Let's look at the main detection approach. A SIM architecture contains the three main layers. The first layer is data source. SIM can receive secret data from endpoints, network device, and firewalls. Cloud and SaaS platform identify the system, email gateway, servers, and application. Each source generated different types of event. For example, identify the system generate authentication event, network device generated network activity, and endpoints generated security and process related event. The second layer is collection and forwarding. Data can be collected through the agent, API, or webhooks, depending on the source and the environment. Once collected, the data is pressed and normalized into a format that the SIM can process continuously. The final layer is processing and analyzed. The collected data is indexed and stored so that it can be sourced and analyzed efficiently. SIM platform can use different storage depending on how quickly the data needed to be accessed and how long it needed to be written. The correlation engine the applies rule and sequence to have the available event. SIM platform may also use analyzed such as the UUBA to behavior platform across the users and assets. With the data collect, process and made available for analyze, the next step is understanding how SIM used to information to identify the suspicious activity. Once the data has been collected and processed, the SIM can use the different detection approach to identify the suspicious activity. The first approach is signature based detection. It works by matching activity against known indicator or malicious activity, such as the malware has malicious IP address or there is an indicator compromise. This approach is generally fast and effective when the threat is already known. However, it can be less effectivity against new or previously unknown threats where the known signature is available. Then the second approach is animal based detection. Instead of the looking for the known malicious indicator, it looks for activity that from the normal baseline of normal behavior. For example, an account that normally accesses a limited. The fourth approach is threat intelligence driven detection. SIEM can use information from threat intelligence feeds such as the known malicious domain, command, and control infrastructure, indicator of compromise, and attacker techniques. This provides the additional information around an event can help identify activity associated with known threats. Once a correlation alert is generated, detection is only the beginning. Let's follow the alert through investigation and response process. Detecting potential dangerous activity is only part of the process. SIM also need a determine when individual events are related and together indicate a potential attack. This is where the detection rules and event correlation become important. A single event may not provide the enough information to identify an attack. For example, one failed login could simply be user entering the wrong password, but if multiple failed login are followed by a successful login, a new device registered and a privilege change, the command pattern become much more suspicious. Correlation allow the SIM to connect this related event and generate a higher confidence detection. The first type of the threshold based rules. This trigger when an activity crosses defined limits within a specific period. For example, a certain number of failed login attempts for the same source within a few minutes. The idea to identify activity that occurs on unusual high frequency. The second type is sequence rules. This looks the event occurring in a particular order. For example, login to privilege chains and data process. The individual event may not immediately indicate an attack, but their sequence can provide the stronger indicator of suspicious activity. The third type is cross-source correlation. Here is the SIM connect even coming from the different system. For example, VPN login to combine with a impossible travel location and a login from a new device can create more stronger signal than anyone those event itself. Let's take a simple account takeover for example. First, we have 6 failed login attempts through the VPN within the 40 seconds. Then the seventh attempt is success. The account is then the seen logging in from the unrecognized autonomous system number. After that, a new MFA device is registered. Finally, the account receives the administration role. Individually, some of these events could have the valid reason, but when the SIM correlated them in this sequence, the overall pattern become a high dangerous. Instead of the generating 5 unrelated alert, The system can produce uncorrelated high confidence alert for the possible attack. Once a SIEM generate an alert, detection is not end of the process. The alert needs to assist, investigate, and act upon. The response process can be divided into 5 stages. The first stage is alert review. The analyst review the alert and determine if the service and relevance. This also consider the importance of the affected asset. The objective to quickly determine which alert required to immediately attention. Then second stage is investigation. The analyst to examine the available security data, they understand what happened. They can review the related logs, endpoints activity, and threat intelligence information to build their timeline. And the determine whether the alert represent a genuine security incident. Once a malicious activity is confirmed, the next step is containment. The objective is prevent incident from the causing further damage. Depending on the situation, this could involve the isolating a system, turning off a compromised account, or blocking on a malicious indicator. After containment, the organization need to address the main problem. This is can include the patching, the affect system, resetting the complex credential, and removing a way to attacker stays in the system or the trace of the attacker. The final stage is reporting. The incident should be documented with the root case, timeline, action takes, and lesson learned. This information can then be used to improve the organization further detection and response capability, including repeating the existing detection rules and monitoring based on what was learned from the incident. We have looked at the what SIM is, how security data moves through the platform, how different detection approach identify activity, suspicious activity, and how correlated alert move in the investigation and response. But understanding the technology is only one part of the picture. This real value of the SIM becomes more clear when we look at how these capability apply to actually security incident. So let's move from the concept in the real world threat detection. We will begin with a recent case involving Taiwan government and a critical infrastructure network. This case is particularly event because it shows how threat landscape is evolving, including the increasing use of the automated and AI assistant technique. In July 2026, Taiwan government agency were targeted by an for foreign cyber attack that combined conventional technique with AI agent assisted activity. Taiwan Minister of Digital Affairs confirmed that cybersecurity monitoring detected the abnormal activity and the affect agency successfully handled the incident. According to research, the operation ran over the approx 4 days and involved multiple AI agents working in parallel. The reported activity including mapping the government system, compromising user account, and taking personal records. Dreams to research the reported 85 compromised account and more than 500 personal record taken. The operation also expanded beyond the initial government target to include Taiwan Nuclear Safety Agency, government technical supply, and energy sector organization. What makes this case significantly not simply use of AI, it's the level of automation. The report AI agent, we are able to perform different tasks in parallel and adapt their activity based on the what they found. For defenders, this means that security monitoring needs to identify relationships across the different types of activity rather than the only one of the known indicator. This is where the SIM becomes relevant. SIM can bring the together identify, endpoint, network, and other security event and correlated them to provide a broader view of dangerous activity. Importantly, we are not saying that SIM specifically dictated this attack. The public reporting the confirm that Taiwan cyber security monitoring detect the incident. The SIM connection is how this type of centralized visibility and correlation can support detection of similar activity. Then the Taiwan case shows why both visibility and detection are important. Now let's bring that down to types of suspicious activity security teams commonly needs to identify. Brute force and credential attack, the first category. Typical indicator include the large number of failed login attempts in a short period. Password repeatedly login attempt activity across the multiple accounts or repeatedly attempt against a single account from the different source. Then the next and second is dangerous authentication. This can include the impossible travel activity, access the outside normal working pattern, login from the unfamiliar device or network, and repetitive MFA requests that may indicate an attempt to gain access. Then third is privilege escalation. This is occur when an account receives the higher privilege than expected, such as the standard user suddenly being granted the administrator access or being added to privileged group without an authorized change. Then the fourth category is malware endpoint activity. SIM can receive endpoint security event that indicate the dangerous process of activity. On-site program execute security control being disabled ways of the attacker stays in the system being created. The fifth category is data exploitation and network anomaly. Indicator can include unusual large outbound of transfer, communication with rare destination, deinstallation, or unexpected increase in upload the cloud storage. This signal can from the different part of the environment, which is why bringing them together in SIM is important for understanding the border actor attack activity. SIM becomes a significantly more effective when it is integrated with other security technology that extend to visibility, constant, and response capability. There is the important ingredient, and of the first one is endpoint detection and response. EDR provides detailed endpoints including information about process, files, and endpoints activity. This information can send to SIM to centralize analyze, while response activities such as isolating and endpoints can be performed when required. The second stage is security, automation, and response that automate prevent response workflows based on the security alerts. A SIM alert can trigger actions such as turning off an account, blocking IP address, or creating the incident text. The third is threat intelligence. Threat intelligence platform provides the information about known indicator attacker techniques such as malicious IP address, domains, and command and control infrastructure. SIM can use the information to add constraint to security event and improve detection. Together, this technology extends what SIM can do. EDR provides a deeper endpoint of visibility. SOAR enables automate response, and threat intelligence provides additional context about the known threats. When SIM provides a centralized visibility and detection capability, it also comes a particular challenge. There are three main important of the first is alert fatigue. When the security teams receive a large number of alerts, it becomes difficult to prioritize the event that actually require the attention. This can result is important alerting with the overload. The second is data volume. As more log sources are connected, the amount of data being collected and brought into the SIM and stored increases. This can increase operational and storage cost and may lead the organization filter out of certain logs potential and creating visibility gaps. The third is tuning debate. Detection rules need to, as and the organization system, user and infrastructure change, rules that are not regularly reviewed can generate excessive false positive or fail to detect new pattern efficiently. Let's warm up the session by the bring up the key points we are covered today, from how SIEM collects and process security data, how it supports the threat detection, investigation, and response. The first is SIEM provides centralized visibility. SIEM brings security data from different parts of the environmental into centralized view, helping the security team understand what is happening across the environment. Then second is correlation add context. Individual event can have limited meaning of their own. Correlating related events can provide a more clear picture of the dangerous activity and help produce the higher confidence of detection. The third is speed matters. Speed is critical in cybersecurity. Thus, the faster dangerous activity is defined, and upon the more opportunity there is to limit its impact. And finally, is SIM works as a part of security ecosystem. SIM is the more effectivity when it works technological such as EDR, SOAR, and threat intelligence. This technology extend a visibility, constant, and response capability. Thank you for joining us and your valuable participation. I hope this session gave you clear understanding of how SIM support modern security operation. I will be happy to take any question. first question is from Chiranjeev. Thank you, Chiranjeev. What's the difference between SIM and SOC? SOC is a team and process responsibility for monitoring, investigating, and responding to security incident. SIM is the technology the SOC used to collect, analyze, and correlate security data. Then next question is Assis. Thank you, Assis. How SIM different from the just using EDR or a firewall log viewer? EDR and firewall mainly provide visibility into their own area. SIM brings data from the multiple sources together and correlated them. For example, dangerous login and endpoints alert and the unusual network activity may look unrelated individually but become a clear threat when correlated by the SIM. The next question from Kapleswar Rao. Thank you, Kapleswar. How do you reduce false positive and alert fatigue? False positive can be reduced through the better correlation rules, UBA based behavior baseline, regular rule turning, and a prioritize the highly alerts. SAM turning is an ongoing process because the environmental and attack pattern continuously change. The next question is Satyavar. Thank you, Satyavat. Can SIM detect zero-day or unknown attacks not readable through the traditional signature alert? Zero-day and unknown attacks can be detected using the behavior analysis, anomaly detection, and UVA, which looks for the activity that deviates from the normal behavior rather than relying only on known attack signature. Thank you, everyone, for having this section with us.